Welcome to the Monthly Movie Dispatch, the movie review show from friends that you can trust. Every week we broadcast a review of a new film, talk about some film news or other relevant topics, and recommend what to watch. We've been talking, critiquing, and gushing over films and movies since we were in high school. Trust me, we're far past high school now, and we aim to bring you honest conversation about relevant cinema. I'm Nick Moffat, and I'm here with my good buddy Shaun Bowlby.
Hello.
And today we're going to be talking about A Quiet Place Part 2. No colon. Right, Shaun?
No colon and Roman numeral 2.
Right.
Yeah.
Just for any of you taking notes out there.
Mm-hmm.
This film was supposed to come out in 2020. Funny enough, it actually had like a whole carpet of premieres. It had the whole red carpet experience. John Krasinski and Emily Blunt, they did the full-on press tour.
Yep.
They did the junkets and all of that, and then COVID came along and all the theaters got shut down.
I believe it was days before the movie released, right? They were
right.
advertising and promoting it up until about 3 days before the movie was supposed to release, and then they pulled it. So it was probably the last movie that or the first movie that was canceled, I guess, for the...
Yeah, I don't know 100%, but that does sound right. Yeah, it was probably the first movie that just got delayed.
To leave theaters.
Yeah. Or the first one that was truly impacted.
Yeah.
But just before we get into the review of the movie, we want to talk about the box office a little bit, just because, the box office came out pretty strong with this movie. You know, like we said before, it was supposed to come out in March 2020, and maybe early April. I can't remember exactly, but it was not scheduled, but it was expected to make around $60 million. And since then, obviously, all the theaters were shut down. They kind of came back last summer a little bit, like Tenet and a few others hit the theaters, but made very little money. Since then, the vaccinations come along, a lot more people are going to the movies, but even then, it's been kind of slow. And this movie, over the course of Memorial Day weekend, made $58 million. So that's just under what it was originally supposed to make back in 2020.
Yeah. So it's impressive.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say, that's more than Tenet's entire run. Another movie that was supposed to make over $100 billion.
Yeah.
And maybe even opening weekend. I'm not sure what the expected gross was on that, but Nolan movies typically make a hell of a lot of money, and it's looking good considering that Quiet Place came out and just its opening weekend made almost $60 million.
Yeah. Which I'm still hoping for a Tenet re-release as well. Hopefully they can get that out. I'd love to see that movie in theaters.
Yeah. The rest of the year is going to be packed, though. We'll see if they do that. But I have you heard rumblings about that?
I think, ever since it came out, there's been talk of people wanting it to be re-released after the pandemic. And,
it was kind of the only movie in theaters for a while there. It was.
Yeah.
It had a long run. It was
it
had a good 6-month run.
Yeah.
But hardly any theaters are actually open to show it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, poor guy, little Tenet over there.
Yeah.
Not able to.
Poor Christopher.
Yeah, I don't really feel too bad for Christopher Nolan. No, he could have waited. He could have waited.
Yeah,
poor little baby,
John Krasinski.
Yep, John Krasinski
Well,
decided to wait.
I don't know if it was his decision, but
sure. Yeah. But Tenet was Nolan's decision. That's kind of why I don't feel too bad for him, because he was like, I'm gonna save movie theaters with my movie Tenet. And then it was with the crowd, just critically,
Yeah.
I wonder if it was like The Dark Knight or something, if it would have brought people to the theaters more, or if people generally were not ready to go back. I wasn't ready to go back.
If I recall,
I'm fully vaccinated now.
Yeah.
So I feel ready to go back.
If I recall, when it originally released, it wasn't even available in Washington State because movie theaters were completely shut down. At best, you could see it in a drive-through or a drive-up or a drive-in movie theater.
Drive-in, drive-through.
Yep, drive-through.
Man, that'd be a
movie
weird
theater.
experience watching it through the drive-in, drive-through.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, dude.
Yeah, it's. I mean,
you've been going to the movies for a while. This was my first like new movie back.
Yep.
And it felt great. I mean, it was fun. I had a blast. Went with a couple friends, and I still wore my mask the whole time, even though though I'm vaccinated. I ate a little bit of candy, but it still feels kind of weird being around people in a small room.
Yeah, definitely.
But
this was the first movie I saw with my wife, and it was her first movie in theaters, so that was nice. Besides
Back Then.
Oh yeah, that's right. The first new one that she saw in theaters.
Yes, which we saw for my birthday. If anyone's wondering why I said that, and I know that.
That was so fun.
Yeah, good times. Good times. So. What do you think? Do you think movies are back? Do you think people are like back going to the movies? People are going to be getting excited about it again?
I'm sure on some level this movie probably would have done better or could have done better if we were, maybe if it had waited a month or so, if more people were vaccinated, if there weren't like the limitations on. I think theaters are still at, I don't know what, 25% or there's still limitations on how many people can be in the theater. So I'm sure on some level that it could have done better. But it definitely gives me hope. I personally had suspected that people have been chomping at the bit to get the hell out and start doing things again. And, a big release like this is perfect for that purpose. And yeah, I think it's only going to get better from here.
Yeah, I think so too. I think people are still kind of being picky a little bit, I think there's a couple things that are still happening. I think a lot of people still don't realize that movies are open. I was getting my hair cut over the weekend, and I mentioned to the lady I was going to see this movie, and she was like, "Oh wow, movies still exist? I thought they all went out of business, or they were going to, or they still were." Like she just had no idea. And then that's fine. She's just not a movie person, but I think there might be a lot of people in the general public who just are like, not even thinking about movies or aware that they may or may not be coming back or whatever, and I think that you need movies to kind of like build up buzz a little bit. Yeah. And I think, people might be a little picky and choosy. Like, last week we reviewed, was that last week where me and you reviewed, what was that movie? Those Who Wish Me Dead?
Yeah. Was that last week? Or was
no, me and you did it 2 weeks ago. Derek and Brandon did Army of the Dead last week.
Yep. That sounds right.
But, that movie was like, kind of just meh. I mean, I enjoyed watching it. I watched it at home. You watched in the theater. And for me, it was like, I don't know if I'm going to go to the theater for this. Yeah, I'm fully vaccinated, but still, I just don't feel ready, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, I love going to the movies. It just didn't feel like that was the one that I was ready to like, I don't know, jump back in.
You wanted it to be something special.
Kind of, yeah, And I kind of think that, I mean, I'm just projecting, but I kind of feel like the American public might be doing the same thing a little bit. Not being as picky as me, but maybe like you need a little incentive to like get back, like a movie that's a big tent pole or a big theater experience or something that's like really like gonna draw you in. And then you're like, oh, there's other ones that are coming out.
Yeah. You see all the trailers and you get excited for other ones. I wonder, I just had a thought, is this the first movie, because there's been some other bigger movies that have released in theaters, but is this the first one that has released exclusively in theaters and not on any streaming service at the same time? If you, off the top of your head, do you recall one?
I have the like top 10 blockbuster list here of the year so far.
Okay.
And I think the other big one that is in the top 10 but did not make much money was Spiral, the Saw movie.
Okay.
But that had Chris Rock in it, who's not necessarily a bankable star, and it's Saw. That's gonna be a niche audience, right?
Uh-huh.
I mean, uh, Demon Slayer, that anime movie,
Yeah.
made $21 million,
Mm.
which seems pretty good. You know,
I mean, King Kong made quite a bit of money.
yeah, King Kong made 48, and
Yeah.
that was run HBO as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. It's looking like Quiet Place might have been that first
Yeah.
truly like big blockbuster, and I don't even know if this is like a big blockbuster. I do think this is like a theater experience
Uh-huh.
type movie, though.
It's the biggest blockbuster in a year for sure.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing is like I kind of think like Godzilla vs King Kong is more of like the blockbuster
Yeah.
blockbuster.
I mean,
whereas
it's as far as how much it is busting the block.
sure. I think the first real test is going to be Space Jam.
Yeah,
like who's
family.
who's
That's
gonna go
interesting.
see Space Jam?
Mhm.
That's coming out. Of course, that one's gonna be on HBO too, so maybe that's not the first true test. But like I'm wondering, like these movies that are gonna come out that people are going to be interested in, but aren't gonna be necessarily big critic movies, and
Mhm.
you could watch at home. Like, are people gonna like go out to the theater for Space Jam?
Yeah, it's also when does that come out? Do you know off the top of your head? Space Jam 2. I'm trying to look it up. That's mid July. So I wonder if it's going to be if it might be hurt by kids not being vaccinated as as commonly vaccinated as adults.
Sure.
It being a
that's
family
factor, too.
movie, but mid-July, that's a ways away. So
Yeah.
maybe
And
it
then
will.
the other big one is Fast and the Furious,
Mhm.
and I think we're all expecting that to make a lot of money, but will it make all the money like it's
Mhm.
supposed to?
Yeah.
Is it going to open to $100 million? Like it definitely would in a different year.
Yeah.
So I guess Fast and Furious is the other big test. Tickets went on sale today for that one, and
Yeah.
I had multiple people texting me about buying tickets for it. So
Nice.
I mean, one of them was Derek.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, dude. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to be back at the movies.
Yeah, for sure.
I think I got to re-up that A-list. I was trying to decide if I should do A-list or the Regal one
Uh-huh.
because I have two Regal theaters closer to my house.
Yeah, that's
But I
true.
like the AMC theater more.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. I think I'm going to go back to AMC.
And you're not too far away from Linwood.
No, it's really not
Mall.
too bad. I mean, it's 25 minutes, but
I mean, I'm sure I think the Everett Mall has don't they have an IMAX screen there?
they have what they
Regal?
call RPX.
Okay.
But it's definitely not
Yeah.
as nice, and
Yeah.
just the experience of going to that theater isn't as nice either.
Mhm.
It's not terrible. It's just there's something about Regal that just kind of rubs me a little weird. I'm not sure why. But,
Yeah. I feel like they're not as interested in investing in the better seats and keeping it, making sure at least a couple theaters have the recliners and the better screens, the IMAXs. So yeah, I don't know. I'm the same way.
yeah. So I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna be subscribing to something. I should subscribe to the product that I like more, not just the convenient product.
Yeah.
So I'll probably go back to A-list if I do that at all. But
You could jump back and forth too. There's no, it's like any subscription service. How often how often do you start up a subscription service and cancel it the same month?
From what I understand, it's kind of hard to cancel A-list.
Really?
Have you ever tried?
No, actually, I haven't.
I think it's kind of difficult, but
All right.
we can get into that later. So you ready to talk about Quiet Place Part 2?
I think so.
Should we get into it?
Yeah. Let's jump in.
Okay. All right. So, reading the Quiet Place Part 2, directed by John Krasinski, Jim Halpert.
Mm-hmm.
Stars Emily Blunt, Cillian Murphy, and Millicent Simmons. Following the plot description, following the events at their home, the Abbott family now face the terrors of the outside world. Forced to venture into the unknown, they realize the creatures that hunt by the sound are not the only threats lurking beyond the sand path. And this is available in theaters. That's where it's available right now.
Mm-hmm.
Not great plot description.
No,
Not terrible,
I don't know
but
how much that necessarily applies.
yeah, I mean, honestly, I didn't think that like there were other people they bumped into, but I didn't think that was the biggest part of it.
No, definitely not.
It's more about them trying to defeat the bad guys, the aliens,
the big bads.
And slight spoilers from the first movie, but by the end of the first movie, they kind of develop actual defense against the aliens.
Mm-hmm.
This is the movie where if they make any sound, that's what attracts the aliens. So if they're silent,
aliens hunt by sound.
Yeah. So if they're quiet, if they're not moving, if they're just standing still, then the aliens don't see them. But if they make any noise at all, then the aliens come running and attack them. And they, again, slight spoiler for the first movie, but they realize that the feedback from like stereos or specifically with cochlear implants, one of the characters in the movie has cochlear implants. She's like deaf, and so she has the little audio devices in her ears. That causes feedback, and then that like kind of ruptures their brain and shakes their skull, and then they're easier to shoot in the head, and then their heads blow up.
Well, yeah, I think they have like a protective shell or armor around them, and then it opens up.
Yeah, it's like it opens up, and then they can get a shot into the weaker part of their anatomy. So then in this movie, just giving a little bit more plot description, in this movie they find like a radio signal that's like a song that's on repeat, and they realize that if they can get to that radio, they can play the feedback over the radio, and then the aliens will hear it and their skulls will be ruptured, and then that's a way that they could globally, or at least locally, help other people other than just themselves. Which is funny to me because that's also how they defeat the aliens in Mars Attacks. So
that is true.
And that's one of my favorite alien movies. But and that was a joke, and that was with yodeling, I think. But still, it's a common thread. Another common thread too is that they don't like water in this movie, and that's also just like Signs, another alien movie that I like.
Yeah.
But I really like alien movies, Shaun. I don't know how you feel about alien movies, but I'm a big fan of alien movies.
I like them.
There's those two I just mentioned. Obviously, there's other classics like E.T. and Independence Day and all that. Alien, obviously, Aliens. Yeah. But there's a slew of alien movies, and
Close Encounters.
I watched one. Close Encounters, of course. I watched one last year that I really loved called Fire in the Sky, and it's pretty low budget, and it was more about like the town, like someone in their small town gets abducted, and it's more about the small town not really believing anyone that this guy actually got abducted. And then there's like one scene of like pure terror and body horror, and it's like super fucked up. Really, really love that movie.
Nice.
But that movie does some like cool effects in the sky, and I just was thinking about that one because this one had a really strong opening scene. I wanted to bring up the opening because it was a flashback before the aliens showed up. It starts out in the town, and the town is super quiet, and you're like, okay, it doesn't look destroyed yet. And then they end up, the whole town's like at a local baseball game or something, and then they're all playing, and then you can see like something coming out of the sky. It's like it's like slow, it's flying down, looks like a meteor, but it's moving really slow. and everyone's like, what the hell is that? And everyone kind of just starts leaving and going to their cars. So they're just like, okay, we need to get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
And then, shit goes down. The aliens just start running and just attacking people, and it's a really captivating opening scene.
Yeah, for sure. There's some really great single shot sequences that that look really cool, from inside the car driving around, then pulls out of the car and follows John Krasinski around for there's some
Right.
really cool stuff going on. It's
there's
really
that scene
intense.
where Emily Blunt's there's that long shot where Emily Blunt's driving, and then there's like a bus that's heading toward her,
Yeah.
and she starts driving backwards, and the bus is like not slowing down, and then the alien starts climbing out of the front of the bus and jumps on their car, and it's like, man, it's fucked up.
Yeah.
Anyway, I didn't mean to go on such a tangent. I just really like that opening.
Yeah, for sure.
And
it was very
that's
strong.
like how the movie starts.
Uh-huh.
So, I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was pretty great. I thought the tension was superb.
Yeah.
They got me. I was on the edge of my seat. I think they used a few shortcuts plot-wise, but for the most part, I was invested. I was right there, very nervous about what was happening, and I think we can get more into it, but I liked what they did with the story. I liked how they expanded the universe a little bit. I thought they provided some insight onto, I don't know, some of the criticisms from the first movie. There was, something I remember with the first one was they went to a waterfall at some point, and people were like, well, why didn't they just hang out by the waterfall the whole time? They should have just built a house over there. And it's like, I think that those aliens attacked so quickly and were so damaging so fast that everything was just survival mode.
Yeah, how are you going to build a house?
Right.
Build a structure that can, house all your stuff and that you can actually live in without making any noise.
Yeah, and that's what I thought that opening scene really set the table for how quickly things went to hell.
Yeah.
And I just really, really loved this movie. I just had a great time with it. I thought it was like it was a little bit different from the first, I thought one of the things with the first movie was the emphasis of being quiet. It was like that movie was so quiet that if you made any noise in the theater, you felt uncomfortable. Or at least if anyone else made noises in the theater, you were like, shut the fuck up, you're going to kill us. And I didn't think this movie relied on that as much. I didn't really get the sense that it was like, I got the sense that they needed to be quiet, but it wasn't as visceral of a experience to be in the, pitch quiet. I was gonna say pitch black, but that's black box.
Yeah.
What would you call it? The utter silence.
Yeah, for sure. I wonder, is that because
decibel.
So I saw this movie, or the first movie, in theaters back when it came out. I don't think I've seen it since, so I'm a little fuzzy on really. I pretty much remember the whole movie and everything, but I don't really remember specifics like how it made me feel, like how the silence made me feel. So I wonder, is it because you're just kind of used to it? Maybe we already went through that in the first one, or you really think they did something different in this one?
I think they were doing something different a little bit. I think they weren't relying on that as much. I think that there were more scenes in this movie where they were in kind of a safe spot.
That's true. Yeah, that's definitely true.
Make plans and do stuff like that. I mean, you could be right, but I just felt like that first one really was the emphasis on have to be quiet.
Yeah.
And this one, at least, at the very least, they had a defense. If an alien was running at them, they could fight back.
True.
Not all the time, because it's you had to get the stereo out and turn it on and all that.
Yeah.
It was a 3-step process. But I just got the sense that that wasn't as. I mean, one of the one of the kids in the movie, like very early on, steps in like a bear trap, and he is just screaming, like bloody murder. And I
Yeah,
got the sense, like right there, that it's like, okay, like
that was
things aren't
so great.
as intense,
Uh-huh.
things aren't as not intense, but it's like
Yeah.
in the first movie you got the sense that like if you like stepped on a stick the wrong way,
Mm-hmm.
they'd come
That's
running.
true. Yeah.
But I'm not even saying this as a detriment to the movie. I think it just didn't seem like they relied on that as much.
Yeah.
And
Maybe
you know,
even for the better. I don't maybe the movie it's a good thing that they kind of moved on a bit from that, and rather than just kind of rehashing. That's one thing that I really appreciated about this movie. I really didn't feel like they were they wasted any time rehashing stuff from the first movie.
Yeah.
And yeah, I thought most of the dynamics of this movie were pretty different, and that's probably another example of how the silence of the movie was still very important, but it wasn't as heavily reliant on that in this movie as it was in the first movie.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that,
I agree
and,
completely
and
that I
that's
didn't
such
think
a
that this was
such
usually
a narrow trail to walk
yeah, yeah,
of going
and
too far versus not, going too far away from the original versus just rehashing the original. I thought they walked that line really well.
yeah, I agree. I didn't, most of the time sequels fall into the trap of sequels of either having to rehash or redo plot points or just do the same things, and I really felt like this one built upon it, like it did the right things a sequel's supposed to do.
Yeah.
I mean, what else were your initial thoughts? What else did you think?
So one thing I wanted to mention and even ask you about, because you're more familiar with horror, I've been thinking about this movie and also the first one, about how it's fallen into it exists in this really interesting, great little, not niche, but little area of horror that I can't really think of any horror movies that really fall into it, where it's like this perfect mixture of, it's not scary, it's not that scary, the monsters aren't really all that scary, but it's like it relies so heavily on tension and action. Or it's not an action horror. I don't think I would go that far, but it's relying and leaning heavily on those two things, as opposed to so many other horror movies. It feels like it's all about the horror. It's about the scares. It's about that uncomfortable terror that the movie is trying to make you feel. And I think this movie, and I think that it's probably why this movie is so successful, or these movies are so successful, is that they don't really rely on that heavily. There's a little bit of that, and I'm sure for some people it's a little bit scary, but I don't think that, I can't think of anyone that I would not recommend this movie to because they aren't into scary movies. Like there's no real body horror. There's no gore, and it's not like horrifying imagery in your face, or the subject matter isn't too scary. It's not going to keep you up at night. So yeah, and then like also the action and the heavy tension is what makes this movie so successful. And I really can't think of any movie off the top of my head that really fit into that little section of horror movies. The only one I can really think of is the original Terminator, where it's high tension, but it is still a horror. but also some action. And anyways, that's one that kind of comes into mind. But what do you think? Do you think? I think it is
just
pretty.
watched first Terminator like earlier this week, and the second one and the third one. I watched I watched the 3 Terminator movies this week. Yeah, I mean, I think that this one, I think what you're kind of describing is like a thriller, right? I mean,
but it's not.
Like,
it is a horror. It's definitely a horror. And but it's like I don't know. It is a horror, but it doesn't like rely on that the scary stuff that pushes some people away. Is I think the interesting thing that this movie that little area of horror that not too many movies really exist in. But anyways, I think that was just something I've been thinking about. And I think that's why it's so successful. And this movie it doubles down on that, and it exists there really well as the first one. I think this movie is super intense. I think it finds a lot of really interesting and fun things to build up the tension with, like you mentioned the bear trap earlier. That was like, there's some really great shocking moments of this movie, and that is certainly one of them. And it just like it amplifies that tension. It just ratchets it up at every. He finds really great ways to ratchet up the tension at every level of this movie. Just is having an aliens invading isn't if that's not intense enough. Now there's a pregnant lady giving birth, that's from the first one. Yeah. This one, now the kid gets stuck in a bear trap. And so, yeah, there's, and yeah, it's always something new. It's always it seems like it's constantly just being unexpected. And I think this movie does some really great things, like particularly with the way that it edits its several of its scenes, and the way it like cuts between scenes with rising tension and as kind of different. And actually, I guess the first movie kind of did similar things as well. But this movie, I think, does it a little bit more and maybe even to greater effect. Where it's like cutting between several different scenes and as they all climax together. And it was really impressive, and it really did a great job of keeping the intensity of those scenes on equal footing as it did it, and without losing the audience at all.
Yeah. I mean, I agree completely. I want to get into the details on that a little bit in the spoiler section, but because I was affected by the tension in those scenes. That's kind of what I was talking. Like, that's towards the climax of the movie, maybe not the very end climax, but yeah, like that's towards the end. We're doing the Return of the Jedi thing, where there's like 3 things happening all at the same time and cutting back and forth. But yeah, it's like,
except for it's like shot by shot. Like it'll like go from one scene to the next. For like, here's a shot of this thing, and then it'll almost like finish that action in a different scene with different characters, and then it'll jump to another character as they're just the way that they're able to do that.
Yeah, there was something that happened too where like they like 3 people were doing something, and you didn't know who the bad thing was going to happen to. You knew something bad was going to happen.
Yeah.
And then it ended up not happening to all 3, but then they timed it really well.
For sure.
Yeah, back to what you were saying before. I mean, I agree. This is definitely a horror movie. We were the person I went with. One of the people I went with, she hates horror movies, but
Mm-hmm.
she thought this one would be okay because the subject was like a little more unbelievable
Mm-hmm.
and probably not going to be as scary. You know,
Yep.
she doesn't like gore. She
Yep.
doesn't like the big scares that keep you up at night or wake you up in the middle of the night.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I do think that opening scene was like, okay, so if aliens invaded, we'd be screwed, real
Uh-huh.
quick. But, you know, besides that, you're probably not going to be up all night worrying about that.
Mm-hmm.
If you, same as you would with like ghosts or
Yeah.
something, or
Yeah, like
demons or whatever.
Insidious or
Yeah. They did use a
Conjuring.
few jump scares,
Yeah.
which I found
But
kind of
everyone
annoying in
loves
this
jump
movie.
scares, right? Doesn't everyone
Yeah.
love jump scares?
Yeah, it's like a bunch of pigeons fly around. You're like,
Uh,
ugh,
yeah.
okay, I get it.
Yeah.
I guess there would be pigeons though in the world, and
Mm-hmm.
they would be shocking if
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to be quiet and they
Yeah.
jump around. But yeah, dude. Do you want to get into the spoiler section
Yeah,
of
let's
this
jump
movie? Get
into it.
into details a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Get
so
into the nitty
after this
gritty.
point, we're talking about spoilers. So if you haven't seen it and you don't want to be spoiled, then turn this review off. But you can come back later. We'd love to have you. So spoilers from this point on. Spoilers. All right. So Shaun, real quick, going back to those the three things that were happening.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was Emily Blunt going into town to get
Mm-hmm.
medicine for the kid who got his foot caught in the bear trap.
Yep.
The other one was Millicent Simmons, her character, going with Cillian Murphy to try to find a boat to
Mm-hmm.
get to the island where the radio signal was being caught out. Also, by the way, how great is that actress, Millicent
Yeah,
Simmons?
for sure.
She's great. She's really deaf in real
Yeah.
life, and she just really, I thought, represented that community with like authenticity.
Yeah.
Um, and and then the third thing was the kid with the bear trap, who got his foot caught in the bear trap. He decided to, while the other parties were out on important missions, he decided to climb out of the safe place, leave the baby behind,
Mm-hmm.
using oxygen that the baby did not need. I mean, needed, but was kind of wasting it because he didn't need to use it in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
He climbed out, put himself in harm's way, like put himself like climbed up out of the hole, and he went out to this platform with binoculars,
Mm-hmm.
and he ended up getting scared and knocking over a bunch of stuff, and he had to like retreat real quick because obviously aliens were coming because he made a shit ton of noise. What was going on with that? Can you explain
What
why
the
he was
kid
doing
was
that, or is that
doing?
just a dumb horror movie thing? Because
That I feel like, I mean, regardless of what was actually going on, I feel like it was definitely a dumb horror movie thing because, I mean, everyone is watching that scene like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? He had no reason to be up there. You don't even know what he was going up there to look at. He had like binoculars and maybe he was going to see if his mom was coming back or something. Who knows what he was going up there to look at, but
I mean, it's one of those things
yeah.
where, like, in horror movies, often you you want the characters to do smart things,
Mm-hmm.
and they often do dumb things.
Mm-hmm.
And also, though, it's like you never know what you would do in that situation. But
As like a
man,
12-year-old kid,
right?
maybe.
But this kid, like, he's bleeding out. He has like a
Uh-huh.
broken leg, and he's climbing up out of this hole, leaving the baby behind. It's just like, dude, what are
Yeah.
you doing?
Yeah.
That was the big thing that was the only
That
thing
was
in this movie
definitely the
pretty much that
weakest
was
part of
like,
the movie for me, for sure. I think the one thing that it was doing is maybe because his character arc in the movie was, at first he's really scared and he is kind of still relying on his mom, and he doesn't want his sister to leave him, and that I think maybe is a part that or where he first starts to venture out, and instead of just staying back and staying in the safe underground area, he's kind of going up and exploring. That's the only thing like I can think of that why they would include that, or why that would
yeah.
be
See,
a thing that they
I
put in
thought
the movie.
maybe Cillian Murphy had some sort of dark past or something, because
That's what I
they
thought too.
they ended up bumping into Cillian Murphy, and he like was friends with John Krasinski like back in the before times,
Mm.
and he didn't really want to help them, but he was he kind of was reluctantly thrown into the situation to help this family, and he clearly was upset about his family that died and stuff, and he was like pretty much a broken person, and when the kid climbed up there, it was kind of like, what's up here,
Mm-hmm.
and climbed into this room, and there are all these like hanging suits,
Yeah,
and like not suit jackets and stuff, but like clothes were
they
like
were
hanging
like,
there. They like looked like people, and I think maybe that was, I don't really know what that was about either, but
I
it
think
seemed
that
like
was just, it was a factory that they were staying in, and I think those were just, I guess those are the, what do you call them, like the mechanics onesie. Why can't I think of what they're called?
like a jumpsuit.
Jumpsuits that I don't know why they were hanging up there.
Yeah, I kind
I
of
have
thought
no
that
idea what
maybe
that
it
was.
was like a diversion or something, like he set
Yeah.
them up, or like a trap. Maybe he had all sorts of traps around.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly the kid stepped in bear trap, but there were traps around. And then the kid ended up getting scared because there was like a corpse, and it
Mm-hmm.
might have been his wife or his
I
kid or
assume that
something.
was
And
his wife. Yeah.
yeah, and you just saw it for a brief second before the kid like got upset.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like it felt like there might have been more there. Maybe they'll come back around to that in the third movie or something, where maybe Cillian Murphy does have a dark past.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but um, but it would have been cool. It would have been better if they had like hinted at something that sparked the kid's curiosity,
Yeah.
or given him more of a reason to climb out of the hole. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Like if he was like investigating into Cillian Murphy's, like, can we trust this guy or something?
Yeah.
I would have been more into that.
Yeah. I think I really think his character, or his arc, needed something more. I think so. Like the whole point of the movie, and actually, I'll talk about something I really loved about the movie is, so I think the first movie is all about the parents protecting the kids, and like the bravery of parenthood. And, these are kind of the themes that the movie is exploring, is just like the sacrifice of the father, and the strength of the mother, and the family working together to save the family and to protect the kids, the children. And I think that was really effective in the first movie. And then this movie, I think, is more about, okay, we've saved the kids, we've taught them what they need to know, and now it's about the kids stepping up and becoming self-reliant, and becoming capable and brave, and active.
Yeah, like they want to make a
In their own
difference for the
story.
future.
Yeah, for sure. And
The main girl, the deaf girl, is like, she's the
yeah.
one that encourages Cillian Murphy by saying like, you said that you couldn't do more, but here's your chance to do more.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
like, and that on a metaphorical level, that's like next generation of the current state of the world.
Yeah.
Hopefully the next generation does more. Or climate change, or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I think that was the whole arc of the movie, is those kids learning to stand up and be active, and whatever. So back to what you were saying, I think that is what his arc, what they're going for with the son's arc, and that's why he was going through that process of getting out of the hole and exploring. I don't think that was particularly strong. I really liked all of the daughter's the daughter's whole story, the whole arc with Millicent Simmons. Her whole story arc was great. I did think that the son needed a little bit more, something along the lines of maybe him, I don't know, like, I don't know, him discovering something like what you were saying, or maybe him something where he's being faced with losing his baby brother, or having to stand up and go save his baby brother. maybe if he was leaving to go find something that I don't know. Anyways,
Yeah,
I think
totally.
I
Like
feel
they
like
just
he needed a
it
little
felt
bit
like there
more.
was a lack of motivation there, like a lack of reasoning for
Hmm.
him to do something. Like I
Yeah,
don't know, I didn't really get too much out of a character arc for him. So,
yeah.
um,
I saw the I feel like I saw the climax of his character arc, or him completing his arc. I just didn't see I saw the beginning where he's kind of scared and weak, especially after his broken leg, and then like when his mom tells him, like when his mom is leaving and he says, "Don't leave, you have to stay," and she says, you have everything you need, you know it's you have to be whatever I forget what she says
yeah,
exactly. So there
you
was
have
that,
everything
and
you need.
then you didn't really get anything from him until the end, where he kind of steps up in that really powerful moment of the movie for me. I don't know how you felt about it, but like that climax was so good. I fucking loved that so much. Um,
When the alien was crawling through the hole,
yeah,
and then he heard the static come on because he
yeah,
was listening to the song,
yeah,
and he knew that his sister succeeded,
yeah.
and then he unplugged it,
But also,
and the
like what we were
alien,
talking about earlier, by cutting between all the scenes, because you have, at the same time, the sister is off in the radio studio or whatever, and she is she's trying to sneak in and get turn on the radio and put her thing to the microphone or whatever, and
right?
as the alien is attacking them and almost killing
Yeah,
them. And again, they were like cutting back and forth between those two scenes, and it's almost like when she's doing something, it'll cut back to him or the mother, as they almost complete the same action that she started. And I don't know, it was a brilliant piece of editing, and it was really effective at bringing those two storylines together, and completing the character arcs for all the characters. And I fucking loved it. The kid, the son climbing out of the furnace, and holding up the radio and grabbing the gun, as the sister is walking towards the alien, and she grabs the a big chunk of metal. And yeah, they both at the same time. Yeah, it was so fucking cool. It got me going. I loved it.
yeah. It was great,
So
great
yeah,
climax, and then it just ends. Just like the first movie just ends at that point too.
really curious
And
to know what you think about that ending.
I'm fine with it. I liked it.
I
I
loved
just
it.
yeah. I mean, for me, like I'd heard rumblings that there was going to be a third one.
Uh-huh.
Probably, and this was like great. There's going to be a third one.
Yeah.
I'm in. Just I'm in. Period.
Mm-hmm.
Just. And I think that they could go in a lot of directions to wrap it up. I think like it'll probably be more global or something,
Yeah.
like they'll probably be more about figuring out where these guys came from and what their purpose is or
Mm-hmm.
something.
Yeah.
But it's like I liked how this one was about like helping others, and then they just achieved it,
Mm-hmm.
and there's gonna be another one. I don't know. I just
Yeah.
I was into it, and
Yeah, for sure.
um
I
I liked how the
I love a movie that knows when to fucking end the movie. Like, and just like, so I like I was saying, I think that climax was so powerful at completing their character arcs and bringing everything together. And it was like, they knew that is what the movie was, and that there was nothing after that. Like, you don't need falling action. You don't need to see like a return to the normal world, or you don't need to see them like coming together and hugging. That's all like outside of this story that they were telling. Just end it right
And
there. It's so
that's the first
powerful.
5 minutes of the next movie.
Yeah,
And just
exactly.
it's just the first 5 minutes. Like it's the
Yeah.
table setting of the next
Uh-huh.
movie, unless that is a huge plot point in the next movie, which could be fine. I mean, I
Uh-huh.
don't know what they're gonna do with it at
Yeah.
all, but it's it is interesting though,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm all in. I'm all in.
Yeah,
It's gonna be
totally.
great.
Yep.
One thing that I did want to bring up though, in terms of like global and stuff, just the plot summary of this movie, like just going back to it really quick. You know, we said that they realize the creatures that hunt by sound are not the only threats lurking beyond the sand path, and that implies that humans were like
Mm-hmm.
the other threat.
Yeah.
And Cillian Murphy, I guess, like is potentially a threat at first, but not really. He becomes an ally pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's other people that they're trying to help out who are like on an island, and that's kind of funny because they roll up on those people, and it's kind of like the Dharma Initiative. Like
Yeah.
they're all just like living in regular
Uh-huh.
houses, having a bonfire, just talking like normal. Yeah. And then, but then the people that were a threat were they found these boats, and they're gonna get on a boat, and then all of a sudden they get ambushed by like these like weird, ugly boat people who are like, you know, the stereotypical thing of like the people who survived this aren't the people worth saving. You know, it's like the Walking Dead type thing, and we can't trust anybody. And you know, I thought, you know, if I were to read that plot summary, I think the whole movie would be like about those types of people. But they kind of dispatched those people pretty quick.
Yeah.
What did you think about that?
I didn't read the plot synopsis before I saw this movie.
And neither did I.
I didn't really see a I think I saw a trailer a while ago. So I wasn't like I had no expectations for that. So as far as it impacting how I felt about the movie, I thought the movie was great. I thought those weird boat people were fine for for that scene that they were doing. And it is definitely weird that's the plot synopsis, because it's really not a big part of the movie.
Yeah, and I guess we don't need to get too far into that. I just, you know, I just was a little surprised that I thought, generally speaking, the other people that were in this movie were just trying to survive in like kind of a nice way, you know, and it was like they were trying to help out people. And I wonder if, you know, if they're going to go further into like nice people or evil people in the third movie, I guess.
Yeah.
But, you know, who knows?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't have too much more to say. I think we could probably wrap this up. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Super fun. Even if you don't like horror movies, if you don't like being scared, go watch this movie. It's really tense, but it's not particularly scary. Just a really, really fun watch. Really intense, and I thought it was pretty impactful and kind of had some, you know, some powerful moments.
For me, it was like the movie that I wanted to see in theaters.
Yeah.
You know, like this is like the experience that I was like looking for. You know, the movie where like you're all in. You know, like you're forced to pay attention, and it's like a visceral experience back at you.
How was your audience? Were they? Because my whole audience was great.
My audience was nothing like
fine.
Yeah,
not great, but
nothing to comment on.
Yeah,
but I will say that you know, when you're at home, you can't. You know, sometimes you get distracted. I know you probably don't experience this because you're like you got diehard.
Gotta sit down and focus.
Yeah, you're good at focusing, but I think a lot of people, you know, get distracted with their phones and, you know, the pictures on the walls and stuff. And you know, this is like the return to theaters for me, where, you know, you're just brought into it, you know, and you're forced to like be in this world. And, you know, what I love about horror movies is experiencing that adrenaline, that like fear feeling in a safe environment.
Yeah.
And you know, you get your blood pumping, and that's what this did for me. You know, this was like, this got my blood pumping. This made me feel good afterward too, though. You know, you walk out of the theater with like a little bit of a high, and I really loved it. What would your star rating be for this one?
I would say like a good solid 4. Yeah. Probably definitely not higher, but yeah, solid 4.
Yeah, same with me. Solid 4. You know, a few problems, but, you know, not like Nothing to
But
drag it down to
I
three
even
and a half.
felt like, aside from that one problem we talked about earlier, yeah, even the other problems, it was more like, oh, the movie would have been better if they had fixed that. Not even
Right.
like, oh, this is taking away from the movie.
Right, because even when I was sitting there being like, this fucking kid, like, what are you
Uh
doing? I was still on the edge of my seat. You know,
huh.
like, I was still like,
Yeah.
you're gonna risk everything. You know, I
Uh
was
huh.
still like wanting him to survive.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, I was still like, if the whole purpose of that was to raise the tension, it worked,
Uh
you
huh.
know? So
Yeah.
I was worked.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I gave it a solid 4.
Yeah.
So next week we're gonna do another horror movie actually. So Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, which is the third Conjuring movie, but I don't know if these movies aren't truly like connected. Like I don't think you really need to see the other two. It's
Mm-hmm.
like they're all like individual ghost stories based
Yeah.
on true stories.
Yeah.
But you know, I do like when movies when you don't need to have it be all related.
Uh huh.
To have like funny titles afterwards. So
Yeah.
I like Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, and different from A Quiet Place Part 2, where you need to see the first one.
Yeah.
But yeah, Derek's gonna be the main host on that one. I'll be there with him. So I'll be
Nice.
back next week with Derek.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, I just want to remind everyone, you know, say the cheesy words, but you know, be nice to yourself and take care of others
Mm-hmm.
and enjoy yourself.